What happens when you care more than they do? When you give your loyalty, your heart, your time, only to be met with silence, betrayal, or indifference? Most people don't lose their strength because of enemies. They lose it because of unchecked emotions. The fear of being alone, the hunger to feel seen, the need to be needed. These are not signs of love. They are openings, and once exposed, they are used. Machiavelli didn't write for the gentle. He wrote for those who intended to rule their own minds before trying to lead anything else. He warned that those who feel too deeply without discipline are the first to be controlled. In a world where people wear masks and speak in half-truths, the one who reveals too much becomes predictable. And the predictable man is easily broken. But there is another way, a colder, clearer way, a way of strength through silence, presence through distance, not to destroy others, but to reclaim yourself. If you've ever felt like your emotions were being used against you, stay with me, because the most powerful move you can make isn't revenge, it's detachment, and once you master it, everything changes. 1. From emotion to power. In a world that constantly demands your heart, the ability to keep it guarded is no longer a luxury, it is survival. Most people walk through life hoping to be understood, loved, and accepted. That's precisely why they're easy to break. You show your need, and someone will use it. You reveal your soft spot, and someone will press on it. But the man who lives by Stoic principles understands this. What you do not need cannot be taken from you. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, is not about becoming empty. It's about becoming full of clarity. It is the art of not allowing external events or people to govern your state. Epictetus said it clearly, "We suffer not because of events, but because of our opinions about them." The same is true of emotions. You are not weak because you feel. You are weak only when your feelings command you. When your affection blinds your judgment, when your desire overrides your reason, that is when the door to manipulation opens wide. Now imagine this: you're loyal to someone who keeps lying. You forgive because you care. You give them another chance because your attachment convinces you they might change. But what if you stepped back instead of stepping closer? What if you asked not, "How do I fix them?" but "What are they revealing about me?" That's where Stoic detachment begins, not in the denial of love or compassion, but in the refusal to let those things blind you. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he never let power rule his mind. He loved his people, yet remained prepared to lose them. He wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence.'" That's not pessimism, it's preparation. Emotional detachment is preparation. It is setting your mind so firm that when chaos comes, you remain unmoved. And that stillness, that ability to remain centered in the face of betrayal, rejection, or chaos, that is what makes a man unshakable. Let's be honest. Most of the pain you've experienced didn't come from others. It came from your expectations of them. You thought they'd be loyal. You thought they'd never leave. You thought you mattered more than you did. But the Stoic doesn't hope others will act right. He prepares for the opposite and responds with reason, not reaction. That's why a Stoic is rarely surprised. And when he is, he does not crumble. He recalibrates. There is a strength that comes when you are no longer baited by affection or guilt. When someone says, "You've changed," and you no longer feel the need to explain. When someone walks away and you let them go in silence, not because you're cold, but because you've trained your mind not to be desperate. That's the kind of man the world cannot defeat. Most people reveal themselves the moment they feel rejected. They beg. They panic, they lash out. But the man who has trained in emotional detachment knows how to pause. He does not retaliate. He does not explain. He watches. And in that pause, he regains control, not over them, but over himself. And make no mistake, control over others is an illusion, but control over yourself, that is the foundation of power. When you stop needing someone's loyalty to feel calm, or someone's affection to feel whole, you take back what was always yours: your mind, your energy, your time. That's why, in Stoic leadership, hesitation is a greater enemy than opposition. The one who hesitates because he fears losing love or comfort will lose both. But the one who chooses clarity over sentiment, he does not waver. He acts not from emotion, but from value. He cuts off what corrupts his peace. He walks away from what weakens his purpose, not out of cruelty, but discipline. You see, emotional detachment is not about becoming distant. It's about becoming deliberate. It's about choosing who has access to your mind, choosing what deserves your concern. It's about no longer answering to the demands of every relationship, every expectation, every attempt to guilt you back into weakness. Ask yourself this: would the people around you still value you if you gave them no approval, no reassurance, no emotional rewards? Would they still respect you if you remained silent instead of always soothing their ego? If not, what you have is not a relationship, it's dependence. And the Stoic doesn't build his life on dependence. So how do you build this kind of strength? You start by practicing the pause. When something offends you, you pause. When someone betrays you, you pause. When your emotions surge, you pause. And in that pause, you ask, what does this moment require of me? Not what I feel, but what would serve the path I've chosen. Because the Stoic is never trying to feel better. He's trying to live better. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are building the armor of detachment. Every time you walk away instead of explaining yourself, you are reinforcing your position, and eventually something shifts. You stop hoping for others to change. You stop craving closure. You stop fearing distance because you've become whole on your own. You become like a stone in a river, still, solid, untouched by the water rushing around you. People try to get a rise out of you, but you remain composed. They try to guilt you, but your mind remains sovereign. They try to seduce you back into chaos, but you are already far beyond it. This is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is the ability to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. And in that clarity, you are finally free, not from emotions, but from enslavement to them. So if you've ever been broken by someone's betrayal, if you've ever stayed too long because you were afraid to let go, if you've ever reacted in ways that left you feeling powerless, understand this: emotional detachment is the way out, not escape. Elevation. You are not here to be easily read, easily moved, or easily swayed. You are here to build the kind of presence that commands respect without ever needing to demand it. Because once you've detached from needing others to treat you right, you finally start treating yourself with unshakable dignity. And that, my friend, is the beginning of real strength. Now let's move to the next lesson. 2. Clarity over illusion. Detachment isn't the absence of feeling, it's the beginning of seeing. Because when you no longer react from longing, fear, or hope, you begin to perceive people not through the lens of who you wish they were, but through the reality of who they consistently choose to be. And that shift, though painful, is what liberates you. The friend who only calls when their life is falling apart. The partner who grows distant the moment your affection stops flowing. The sibling who uses guilt as a leash. These patterns were always there, but you didn't see them clearly, not because they were hidden, but because your emotions clouded your vision. As the Stoics taught, it is not the world that deceives us, it is our untrained judgments. We assign meaning where there is only habit. We project loyalty where there is only convenience. We see promises in behavior that was never grounded in virtue. But once you detach, you stop giving people the script to control you. You stop rewarding manipulation with compassion. You stop mistaking noise for closeness. And as your attention pulls inward, something remarkable happens. Your time returns to you. Your energy stops leaking into unworthy causes. Your decisions grow sharper because you're no longer reacting. You're choosing. That's what Machiavelli meant when he advised rulers to be both the lion and the fox. The lion does not flinch. The fox does not get angry. Each calculates. Each survives. Power, in the Stoic sense, is never loud. It is composed. And composure is born the moment you stop needing others to validate your worth. You want to be free? Start here. Kill the need for emotional reassurance. Care, yes, but with strategy. Not sentiment. Not desperation. Care because you choose to, not because you must. Most people are loyal to an illusion. The illusion that some relationships are sacred, that some people are incapable of betrayal, that love, if pure enough, overrides self-interest. But that's not reality. That's attachment disguised as hope. And hope, when untethered from reason, becomes the architect of your suffering. Machiavelli warned that there is no such thing as unconditional loyalty, only shifting interests. People stay close when it benefits them. They offer love when there is something to gain. When their needs change, so does their allegiance. That's not evil, that's nature. And if you don't accept this, you will be broken by it. The man who hands his trust to those who haven't earned it doesn't appear generous, he appears blind. The ruler who believes he is beloved by all is already being plotted against. Power requires distance, not to avoid connection, but to protect clarity. Machiavelli knew this. He advised rulers to appear merciful, but remain untouched within. To offer warmth, but never let the fire consume them. Because once you let emotions take command, you hesitate when you should strike. You forgive when you should sever. You rely on people you cannot control, and nothing is more dangerous than building your peace on what you don't govern. That's why detachment is not cruelty, it's lucidity. It's the discipline to observe without needing to cling. The strength to see betrayal not as a shock, but as confirmation. You don't walk around expecting the worst. You simply stop being surprised when it happens. That's the difference. Detachment allows you to act, not flinch. It trains you to expect impermanence and prepare accordingly. When someone you trusted changes, you're not heartbroken, you're already adapting, because you weren't clinging to the bond. You were evaluating the behavior. And when the behavior changed, so did your course. That's not coldness, that's wisdom. The Stoics taught, align your actions with what is within your control. What others do is not yours to command, but how you respond. That's where your strength lives. So when someone disappears in your hardest moment, don't beg. When someone betrays you after claiming loyalty, don't chase, watch, learn, and adjust. Because the person who cries over every storm cannot build a fortress. The man who panics over every shift in affection cannot lead himself, let alone others. This is why you must test relationships, not with accusations, but with silence. When you stop giving so much, who stays? When you stop explaining yourself, who still understands? When you stop being available for their benefit, who begins to disappear? That's what detachment reveals, not just the truth about others, but the truth about the structure of your life. And don't confuse this with isolation. You're not withdrawing from people. You're choosing who deserves your closeness, and on what terms. That is sovereignty. To be able to speak kindly, collaborate deeply, even love fiercely, without surrendering your center. In Stoic practice, everything is measured against one question: does this strengthen my virtue or weaken it? Every relationship is a contract. Every connection has weight. Nothing is neutral. Some people sharpen your edge, others dull it. Some feed your purpose, others feed on your energy. Detachment allows you to discern without the fog of emotional need. Because once you no longer fear losing someone, you see them as they are. And that vision, that ruthless clarity, is the key to every strong decision. If someone is only around because of what you offer, let them fade. If their presence requires you to dim your light, let them go. You do not owe permanence to people who only bring temporary loyalty, and you do not owe explanation to anyone who cannot handle your distance. When you're detached, you walk into every conversation without dependence, every relationship without need, every disappointment without collapse. That's how you win. Not because you overpower others, but because you've already conquered the one thing no one can touch, your inner state. So remember this: detachment isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of truth. And the man who embraces truth over comfort, clarity over sentiment, becomes immune to manipulation, betrayal, and emotional war. Now let's take this further, because what you'll learn next is how detachment isn't just defensive, it's how you take the upper hand. 3. Discipline of detachment. Emotional detachment isn't something that happens overnight. It isn't a personality trait or a natural gift. It's a skill, a discipline, a way of seeing and choosing that must be practiced deliberately, sharpened daily like a blade. You weren't raised to detach. Most of us are conditioned to please, to chase connection, to feel shame when we stop caring. That's why detachment must be learned, not from books, but from experience. From the pain of overgiving, from the weight of misplaced loyalty, and from the stillness you discover when you finally stop trying to be understood by everyone. The first step in mastering detachment is expectation, not of others, but of reality. Expect betrayal. Expect disappointment. Expect people to serve their own interests, not yours. This is not bitterness, it's clarity. It's not about closing your heart, but about opening your eyes. When you no longer expect people to be loyal, their disloyalty no longer rattles your peace. When you assume nothing, you suffer nothing. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence." He wasn't inviting suffering, he was preparing for it. He was building his mind to remain calm when reality didn't match his hopes. Machiavelli understood this too. He observed that men are guided more by interest than by virtue. So when someone hurts you and you ask, how could they? The answer is simple: it served them. That's all. And once you accept that, you stop taking betrayal personally. You stop framing manipulation as malice. You stop asking why and start observing what is. That is the first shield detachment offers, the freedom to see events as they are, not through the fog of emotional expectation. The second step is internal control. This is the Stoic cornerstone: dominion over your own reactions. When you feel anger rise, pause. When desire clouds your mind, pause. When pain strikes, observe it. Don't suppress the feeling, see it for what it is. Test its weight, then respond on your terms. Because if you don't control the emotion, it will be used against you. People look for your emotional buttons so they can press them. They test how far they can push you before you react. But the man who is truly detached responds slower than expected. He doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't retaliate. He pauses, and in that pause, power grows. Imagine someone insults you in public. Most people would react, defend, explain, escalate. But if you just breathe, stay still, and give nothing back, the situation flips. Now they're exposed, and you remain intact. That pause is where detachment lives. It's where you reclaim command over yourself. And in a world ruled by noise, that silence is power. The third step is controlled exposure. Detachment does not mean you isolate yourself from the world. You still engage, you still care, but on your terms. You choose how much of yourself to give and to whom. You can show affection without becoming dependent. You can listen without needing to be understood. You can care without being consumed. Say less than you feel. Give less than they expect. Let people wonder where you stand, because once they can't read you, they can't use you. This isn't cruelty. This is strength. When you're emotionally self-sufficient, no one can manipulate you with guilt or silence. They can pull away and you stay calm. They return and you stay cold. Not because you hate them, but because your peace no longer depends on their behavior. Your energy, your joy, your focus, they are yours again. Machiavelli would call this the armor of the mind. A leader, he said, must be able to walk away from allies, from lovers, from familiarity without hesitation. Because in high-stakes moments, the man who hesitates loses. Power games are not won by those who feel deeply, they're won by those who act wisely. A Stoic lives the same way, not avoiding connection, but refusing to be owned by it. Let's be clear, this is not heartlessness. This is discipline. You still love, you still trust, but you do it without delusion. You don't love blindly. You don't trust endlessly. You don't stay when someone shows you they're no longer aligned with your values. That's detachment in action, the courage to leave, the clarity to not return, the inner stillness that says, I don't need you to validate my worth. And here's the truth. The emotionally detached man is feared, not because he's dangerous, but because he's free. He cannot be bribed with praise or swayed with shame. He sees the game beneath the gestures. He notices the shift in tone before the betrayal arrives. He does not panic. He does not chase. He chooses. You build this skill through repetition, through pauses, through space, through not replying to every provocation, through not explaining every decision, through letting silence speak when words would weaken you. Over time, this becomes your default. People will wonder what you feel. That's fine. Let them wonder. People respect what they cannot predict. So train your mind to move slower. Show less. React less. Say only what's necessary and nothing more. In that restraint, you become untouchable, not because you've withdrawn from the world, but because the world no longer commands your inner state. Now that you understand how detachment is built, it's time to see what it reveals. Because once your emotions no longer cloud your vision, you begin to see the world and the people in it as they truly are. And that, as you'll soon learn, is where the deepest power begins. 4. Becoming untouchable. He sees the trap before he steps into it. He recognizes the game behind the smile. And when the moment demands it, he walks away from anyone, from anything, without apology, without explanation. That is what makes him untouchable. Not because he avoids the world, but because he cannot be shaken by it. You don't become this man overnight. You train for it. Like a warrior strengthens his sword, you sharpen detachment through silence, space, and selection. You don't reply to every message. You don't explain every absence. You don't react just because someone demands a reaction. The more they wonder what you feel, the more power shifts in your favor. People respect what they cannot read. Mystery unsettles the ones who rely on emotional leverage to get what they want. There comes a point in your journey where silence says more than words ever could, when your restraint becomes your signal. When you no longer engage with chaos but let it pass by like a wave against stone. This is not avoidance, it's mastery. Detachment, once learned, becomes not just a tool but a transformation. You no longer react to people, you guide them, not by control but by presence. You don't chase closure, you don't defend your distance, you don't correct the way they misunderstand you. Why? Because none of that matters. The game ends the moment you stop playing by their rules. This is the lesson Machiavelli understood better than most. People, he observed, are driven by inner unrest, by the fear of being alone, by the need to be needed. That fear drives them to overcommit, overconfess, overgive. And in doing so, they place their power in the hands of others. But the man who is detached walks differently. He enters every room, calm, quiet, and unshaken. He doesn't care to be liked. He doesn't react to whispers. He doesn't flinch when people leave. He does not operate from lack. He operates from discipline, and that discipline is unnerving to those who want to control you. You see, when you are truly detached, you discover something stoic and sobering. People only carry the value you assign to them. Their importance is not fixed. It's chosen, and you, at any moment, can choose differently. You don't need anyone, you choose them, and that subtle shift turns dependency into discernment. Now you're not afraid to walk away. You're not searching for proof that you're enough. You're not looking for peace in another's hands. You've become the source. And that makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Because in a world that feeds on validation, you become the one person who cannot be baited, guilted, or pressured. People might not understand it, but they feel it. Your silence mirrors their inner chaos, and they will either respect you or fear you for it. Some will test you. They'll try to provoke you, to pull you back into their cycle. But when you stay still, when you don't take the bait, they fall into their own trap. Because power doesn't always strike. Sometimes it withholds, sometimes it waits, sometimes it says nothing and wins anyway. This level of detachment is rare, not because it's unreachable, but because it's earned, slowly, quietly, over time, in the moments when you refuse to beg, when you refuse to explain, when you refuse to hand your peace over just to maintain a connection. Even when it hurt, you chose stillness over desperation. You chose to sit with discomfort instead of running back to what felt familiar but kept you weak. And with each choice, your mind sharpened, your heart steadied, your presence changed. You became what Machiavelli would call a ruler of the self, not led by affection or anger, but guided by reason. Your emotions now serve your mission, not the other way around. Anger becomes fuel, sadness becomes insight, love becomes selective. You give nothing to those who haven't earned it, and from the silence they can't interpret, you gather everything you need to know. This is not emptiness, this is elevation. The ability to feel fully, yet show restraint. To care deeply, yet never let it cloud your judgment. Imagine how unbreakable you become when no one can guilt you, flatter you, or shame you into surrendering yourself. When you can look a toxic person in the eye, cut them off mid-sentence, and feel nothing. When betrayal no longer shatters you, it simply confirms what you already prepared for. When love doesn't distract you, but sharpens your instincts. That's the moment you become untouchable. Not because you've hidden your heart, but because you've mastered its gate. And now they can't reach you, not the liars, not the manipulators, not the users. They knock, but no one answers. You don't give them a show. You don't offer them the satisfaction of closure. You disappear. you observe, you ascend. So remember this: emotional detachment is not weakness. It is the final evolution of strength. It is the quiet confidence that separates kings from pawns. It is the sharp mind and the steady hand that keeps you centered when the world spins with noise. And it is the one discipline that guarantees no one can ever own you again. Now let's look deeper, because detachment isn't just about keeping peace. It's about creating leverage. And in the next part, you'll learn how silence becomes a strategy that bends reality itself. Number 5. Silence as strategy. Detachment is not passive, it is precision. It is the unseen edge that slices through manipulation before it reaches you. Most people think emotional detachment means retreat, stepping back, withdrawing, disconnecting. But a Stoic knows it's more than that. It's not just a way to defend yourself. It's a way to lead, a way to shift the entire power dynamic without raising your voice, without lifting your hand, without saying a word. Because once you've mastered detachment, you're not just guarding your peace. You're reshaping the space around you. You begin to command it, not through force, but through absence. Most people are ruled by urges they don't even recognize. They cling when ignored. They chase what pulls away. They panic at silence. They overreach when they feel uncertain. That's what makes them predictable, and that's what makes them vulnerable to the one who isn't. The man who stays calm in the face of rejection, who doesn't flinch when affection is withheld, who doesn't collapse when approval vanishes, he becomes ungovernable. Not because he fights back, but because he doesn't respond. That is the beginning of psychological warfare. It starts with this: you remain emotionally unreadable. You give no tells. You reveal nothing. You offer no emotional comfort where none is deserved. And suddenly, the world that once tried to pull you like a puppet finds the strings no longer work. The Stoics taught, what disturbs you is not what happens, but your judgment of it. And once you begin to remove emotional judgment, you no longer feel the need to rescue every moment or correct every misunderstanding. You no longer rush to comfort others just because they demand closeness. You become deliberate, strategic, free. Emotional detachment allows you to create uncertainty in others. And uncertainty, when left unanswered, breeds obsession. When people can't read how you feel, they work harder to win you over. They play the game you refuse to join. You show less emotion than they expect. You speak colder than they're used to. You wait longer than they want. And in that imbalance, you control the rhythm. That's not cruelty. It's command. It's no longer about reacting to others. It's about allowing others to react to your stillness, to your silence, to your refusal to respond. You give nothing away, and they begin to lean forward, desperate to pull something out of you. And the more you don't give it, the more they expose themselves. They reveal the extent of their dependence, the depth of their insecurity, their need for your validation. That is when the power shifts. The wise man doesn't attack with rage. He reflects with restraint. He understands that coldness is not heartlessness. It's discipline. It's the ability to hold back, to wait, to observe. Because the moment people realize you don't need them emotionally, they begin to chase what they once took for granted. They open up, hoping you'll meet their vulnerability, but you don't. You listen, you nod, but you stay still. That stillness forces them to confront themselves. Machiavelli warned rulers never to allow themselves to be fully seen. Appear generous, yes, but never let your true motivations surface. Keep your mind hidden. Smile, but say little. People obey what they cannot understand. That's why emotional mystery is not just power, it's protection. People trust those who seem open, but they submit to those they cannot read. When you remain emotionally silent, People project onto you. They invent meaning. They fill the void with their own hopes, their own fears. And in doing so, they reveal more about themselves than you ever could by speaking. That's psychological warfare. You say nothing, but they hear everything. You do nothing, but they respond anyway. And this silence, this composure, is also a test. Remove your attention from someone and observe. Who still respects you when you stop giving affection? Who grows resentful when you no longer react? The ones who stay centered are allies. The ones who turn cruel were never with you. They were with your emotional availability. Detachment doesn't isolate you from people. It filters the ones worth keeping, but there's a price to pay. To truly weaponize detachment, you must give up one of the most dangerous cravings, the desire for resolution. Most people can't walk away without saying something. They want to be understood, to explain, to fix, to have the last word. But that's not strength. That's weakness disguised as closure. The Stoic never begs to be seen. He never justifies his exit. He doesn't try to fix what revealed itself as false. When someone disrespects your standards, detach. No warning, no argument, just distance. Your silence is the consequence. Your absence is the message. And when you can leave without emotional residue, when you can disappear without the weight of unfinished conversations, that's when you know you are no longer theirs. You belong to yourself again. The truth is, you don't need revenge. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to explain your withdrawal. Your detachment is enough. Your refusal to return is your answer. And when they finally realize the door is shut, not from hatred but from complete indifference, they let go. Not because they want to, but because they can't control what doesn't respond. That is the peak of psychological dominance. You didn't attack. You didn't fight. You didn't plead. You just vanished. And your absence said everything. You must understand, power does not scream. It whispers. It waits. It withholds. The emotionally detached man does not rage in the fire. He steps away and lets it burn itself out. While others spiral in reaction, he watches from a place they cannot reach. This kind of strength is rare because it must be earned. It's forged in moments where you chose discipline over comfort, where you sat with the sting of being misunderstood and didn't run back to clarify, where you were tested and didn't retaliate. Every time you resisted the urge to react, your mind grew sharper, your emotions aligned with reason. You stopped living in response to the world and began building one on your terms. Eventually, you become what the Stoics always pointed toward, a ruler of the self. You feel everything, but nothing owns you. You love deeply, but never blindly. You burn with purpose, but never for the approval of others. Your anger becomes fuel. Your pain becomes clarity. Your care becomes rare and precise. You give nothing to those who demand, and you give everything only to those who've earned the right to hold it. And to those who once thought they could use your kindness against you, your silence becomes unbearable. They knock, but no one answers. You don't explain. You don't return. You don't give them the ending they crave, because you are no longer part of the story they're trying to write. You've outgrown it, and now you rise beyond it. If this spoke to the part of you that's done being controlled, let it be the moment you reclaim your center. Tap subscribe to walk this path with purpose. Comment "Stillness wins" and stay tuned. Your next breakthrough begins in the silence ahead.